Hi students, welcome to Vidyanagar online classes. As you all know, in our previous classes, we have discussed about the friction, the causes of friction, and also we have discussed about the factors affecting friction. Today, in this class, we are going to discuss a new topic, that is friction, a necessary evil. You might be thinking that friction is a force that opposes the motion. That means friction always tries to oppose the movement of an object. Then how friction is necessary for us? But yes, friction is absolutely necessary for us, because there are many things which could not happen if there is no friction. That is why we say that friction is a necessary evil. That means on one hand, friction is useful for us, friction is necessary for us, and on the other hand, it is against us. Friction is not good for us. So in this class, we will discuss both the advantages, why friction is good for us, and also the disadvantages of friction. Okay? So first of all, let us discuss the advantages of friction, that is, why friction is necessary for us. The first advantage of friction is it helps us to walk. Friction helps us to walk. Just imagine if I ask you to walk on a wet marble floor, or if I ask you to walk on a wet muddy track, would you be able to walk properly? No. You may not walk properly. Why? Because there is less friction. The surface is so smooth, so you may not walk properly. Just imagine if there is no friction at all. Would you be able to walk? No. So friction helps us to walk, and that is the first advantage of friction. Understood? Now the next advantage of friction is it helps us to hold things. We are able to hold the objects or things because there is some friction. That is, there is some force which prevents the object to move further. If there is no friction, what will happen? See in the picture, we are holding a carrot. If there is no friction, the carrot will not remain within our grip, and the carrot will continue to move. So friction helps us to hold the things. That is also a great advantage of friction. Understood? Another advantage of friction is that it helps to stop the moving object. Had there been no friction, the object which is moving will be moving forever, and it would have never stopped if there is no friction. So friction helps us to stop the moving object. Okay? Friction also helps us to start or stop a vehicle. If there is no friction between the tires of the vehicle and the road, they could not be started or stopped. So because of this reason also, friction is necessary for us. Why? Because friction helps us to start or stop a vehicle. Understood? Then friction also helps in construction purposes. So when you talk about big construction, everything starts with small things. Suppose you want to hammer a nail. For that also you need friction. If there is no friction, the nail will not get into the particular object when you hammer it. Okay? You may not be able to hammer the nail because everything will slip off. So friction is also helpful in construction purposes. Understood? Now the next advantage of friction is that it helps us to write. You are able to hold a pen or pencil due to friction, and also due to friction you are able to write on the paper. If I ask you to write on the paper which is completely oily, would you be able to write? No. Why? Because there is very less friction on that paper. Even when your teacher teaches you in the classroom, he used to write with the chalk on the board. If there is no friction between the chalk and the board, he may not be able to write. So friction also helps us to write. It is also an advantage of friction. Understood? So what are the advantages of friction which we have discussed here? First one is it helps us to walk. Then it also helps us to hold things. It stops the moving objects. It helps us to start or stop a vehicle. It helps in construction purposes. It helps us to write. So these all are the advantages of friction which we have discussed here. This is why friction is necessary for us. If there is no friction, we may not be able to do these things. Okay? So that is why we say that friction is necessary for us. Now we are going to discuss the disadvantages of friction. Why the friction is not good for us. Why friction is against us. Okay? So the first disadvantage of friction is that it opposes the motion. That is the first thing. Whenever we try to move an object, friction always tries to stop that object, or friction always tries to prevent the movement of that object. Okay? Or to any object which is moving, friction always brings obstacles in the movement of that object. So this is the disadvantage of friction. Understood? Now the second disadvantage of friction is that friction produces heat which results in wastage of energy. First of all, I will give you an example where friction produces heat. You would have seen the matchstick. When you rub the matchstick on the sides of the matchbox, friction produces heat, and due to that heat, fire is produced. Okay? Or when you rub your hands for some times, you will feel that your hands become warm. That is also due to friction which produces heat. But sometimes unnecessarily production of heat results in the wastage of energy. As we know that heat is a form of energy. Due to friction, sometimes unnecessarily a lot of heat energy is wasted. So this is the disadvantage of friction. Understood? Friction produces heat which results in the wastage of energy. Now the another disadvantage of friction is that it also wears out the materials. Whether they are screws or the soles of your shoes. You might have seen that after some time the soles of your shoes wears out. Why is that so? That is also due to friction. So in this way also friction is not good for us. Understood? Now another disadvantage of friction is wear and tear of machinery parts. Now if you look at machines, starting from small machines like drilling machine or washing machines, or even in the big machines which we use in our factories or industries, there are different parts which are joined together. And due to friction that produces heat, after some time these parts get damaged. So in this way also friction is not good. Okay? So what are the disadvantages of friction which we have discussed here? First of all, we discussed that it opposes the motion. Then friction produces heat which results in wastage of energy. Then the third one which we have discussed is it wears out the materials. And the last one which we have discussed is wear and tear of machinery parts. So these all are the disadvantages of the friction. So looking at both the advantages and disadvantages of friction, we can say that sometimes friction is necessary for us and sometimes it is not good for us. So because of this reason, we call friction as a necessary evil. Understood? So that's all in today's class. In the next class, we will discuss a new topic, that is increasing and reducing friction. So we will meet soon in the next class. Thank you.